Everyone has their own way of finding out about the world around them. Some people prefer television or social media, while others prefer reading books or articles online. The most important thing is that we are all able to access information from all over the world at our fingertips with just a single click. But this wasn't always the case. In fact, not too long ago, we didn't have the internet or smartphones. And if we wanted to find out what was going on in another part of the country, we had to rely on newspapers or TV broadcasts. And sometimes these sources would uneven tell the whole truth or would spin things to make themselves look better. That's why some people started to write their own diaries, because they had no one else to turn to. They couldn't share their experiences online or get their thoughts out there for other people to see. So they kept their journals hidden in their bedrooms, writing down every detail about their lives. And one young girl did just that. She wrote down everything that happened to her every single day until one day she wrote something so terrifying, so scary, that nobody has ever been able to explain it. Hello everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today, we're going to be taking a look at the story of the girl who predicted her death. Before we start, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe so you never miss any of our videos. Without further ado, let's begin. Our story takes us back to 1982, a small town in Iowa, where a 14-year-old girl named Sarah Jo Walker lived with her parents. She was an ordinary teenager who liked to spend her free time with her friends, going to the movies, or hanging out at the mall. Like many other girls her age, she enjoyed reading romance novels and dreamed of one day getting married and starting a family. But Sarah Jo also had a secret hobby. Every day after school, she would come home and write in her diary, writing down every detail about her day, including what she wore, who she saw, and how she felt. Sometimes she would write about her hopes and dreams for the future, and other times she would pour out her heart about her problems at school or with her friends. To Sarah Jo, her diary was more than just a collection of words on paper. It was her best friend, her confidant, and her way of making sense of the world around her. Sarah Jo's diary became her escape from the everyday pressures of growing up in a small town. And as she got older, her entries became more personal and revealing. She wrote about her first date, her first kiss, and the ups and downs of her friendships. She also began to explore her feelings about boys and the kind of person she wanted to be when she grew up. As she filled page after page with her thoughts and emotions, Sarah Jo felt a sense of freedom and liberation. Writing in her diary allowed her to express herself without fear of judgment or misunderstanding. It was her safe space where she could be honest and open about everything, including the darkest corners of her mind. However, little did Sarah Jo know that one day her diary would reveal something so terrifying that it would shock the entire town. In 1997, when Sarah was 21 years old, she wrote something in her diary that no one could have ever imagined. It was a prediction of her own death. On March 1st, 1997, at 12:34 a.m., she wrote that she would die on July 1st of that same year at precisely 12:34 a.m. in her sleep. What made this entry particularly eerie was that Sarah had written the exact date and time of her death down to the minute. At the time, Everyone just assumed that it was a joke or some kind of morbid curiosity. After all, who would take the time to write down the exact date and time of their death? But what happened next was beyond anyone's wildest imagination. On July 1st, 1997, at 12:34 a.m., Sarah was found dead in her bed. She had died in her sleep from an unknown cause. This was not only shocking, but it was also terrifying. How could Sarah have predicted her own death so accurately? Was this a coincidence or something more sinister? When news of Sarah's death spread through the town, everyone was talking about it. People were shocked and saddened by the sudden loss of such a bright and promising young woman. But amidst the grief and shock, there was also a sense of disbelief and confusion. How could someone predict their own death so accurately? Was there something more to Sarah's story that no one was aware of? As the investigation into Sarah's death continued, the medical examiner was unable to determine a cause of death. Despite the thorough examination, there were no signs of foul play or natural causes. This only added to the mystery surrounding Sarah's death and made people wonder if there was something more to the story. After Sarah's death, her diary became a source of fascination for many. People were eager to read her entries and see if there were any clues as to what might have caused her untimely demise. However, Sarah's family was hesitant to share her diary with the public. They felt that it was a private and personal matter and did not want her final moments to be sensationalized or exploited. Despite their efforts to keep Sarah's diary out of the public eye, rumors and speculation continued to circulate. People were desperate to know if Sarah had foreseen her own death, and if there was anything they could learn from her story. In the end, Sarah's diary remained private, and the mystery of her death was never fully solved. While there will likely never be a definitive answer as to what caused Sarah to write down the date, time, and place of her death, there are a few theories that have emerged over the years. Some believe that Sarah may have had some kind of premonition or vision that told her how and when she would die. Others believe that Sarah may have been involved in some kind of danger or risk that she was trying to protect herself from by writing down the details of her death. Still, others believe that Sarah's death was simply a tragic coincidence and that her diary entry was nothing more than a morbid fantasy. Ultimately, however, there is no way to know for sure what led Sarah to make that chilling entry in her diary. Here's a question for you. What do you think happened to Sarah? Was it a premonition, a warning, or simply a coincidence? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. We would love to hear your opinion on this fascinating case. But before we go, we'd like to thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe. We've got plenty more content coming your way. Thanks again for watching. Until next time. The room was dark and silent. Sarah Jo lay in her bed, fast asleep. Outside, the clock struck 12, then 3, then 4. Suddenly, her eyes shot open, and she gasped for air. She could feel her heart beating rapidly in her chest, but she couldn't understand why. She tried to calm herself down, telling herself that it was just a bad dream. But as she looked around the room, she realized that something was wrong. The walls were closing in on her, and the darkness seemed to be suffocating her. Panic started to set in, and she could feel her breathing becoming more shallow and rapid. Just then, she remembered her diary. She had written about this feeling before, about the feeling of being trapped and helpless, but she had never experienced it while writing in her diary. She had never felt this way before. As she reached for her diary, she could feel the pages turning themselves, guiding her to the next entry. And as she read the words, she realized with horror that she had predicted this moment. This feeling of dread and impending doom. But how could this be possible? She had written this entry years ago. How could she have known what was happening to her now? As she struggled to understand the mystery of her own diary, she could feel her grip on reality slipping away. The darkness around her seemed to be closing in, and she could feel herself being pulled into its depths. Then, just as suddenly as it had started, it all vanished. The panic lifted, the darkness receded, and she was left in the silence of her bedroom. Confused and shaken, she looked around the room, trying to make sense of what had just happened. Had it been a dream? A hallucination? Or something else entirely? She didn't know. And as she lay there in the darkness, she couldn't help but wonder if she had just narrowly escaped her own death.